This is the Home Tech Podcast, show number 50, recorded on November 3rd, 2011. I am your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and posted each week with world-class show notes out at the AverageGuy.tv. You can contact the show, of course. Send me an email, podcast at the AverageGuy.tv, or track me down on Twitter. It's just at J. Collison. You can also find us on Facebook or now iTunes by searching the Average Guy Podcast. And please leave a comment out there on iTunes if you would. That helps with our search rankings and helps other people find the podcast. We've also set up all the links you could ever need over there at theaverageguy.tv for your iPhone, iPod, iPad, as well as any Android phone or tablet, and even a Zune player, except you got it, Chris, you got to do it manually. Sorry about that. Just look for the iTunes or RSS buttons over at theaverageguy.tv. All right, all the regulars with me tonight. First is Christian Johnson. Of course, Christian's the brains behind bios-mods.com and the smartest kid in the Johnson family. Christian, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, guys.
Good.
Another week in academica world. Marking period 1 closes tomorrow,
Ooh.
Which is a relief, I think.
You guys are on quarters then?
Yeah, we're on quarters.
System?
If I got paid a quarter every day I had to go to school, maybe it'd be worth it. No, probably not.
Listen, you'll make plenty of money in the future, Christian. Don't worry about that. You will make plenty of money doing what you're going to do. So,
yep.
Yeah. All right. So the quarter ends tomorrow. You guys, a little holiday on Monday so the teachers get a break from you.
Yeah, right. You can't get enough of us.
Tell your dad thanks. He filled in last week for you and always does a bang-up job when we have him on the show. And I might have even said he's the best podcaster among the Johnsons. I didn't mean that. If you heard that on the podcast.
Hey, he might be. You know. Who am I?
He's pretty darn good. Also with us tonight. Yeah, he is good. Also with us tonight, of course, is our friend who lives underneath the earth there in Melbourne, Australia. Andrew, did I just call you a troll?
That or a corpse, one or the other. Hi, Jim.
And Andrew, how are the solar panels working on the roof these days? You've been monitoring the power?
Yeah, I drive the wife mad monitoring the power. So yeah, we're doing well. We're generating over our daily consumption every other day. So we're quite happy with that.
Nice.
We're almost at a point at the moment where we're paying our entire gas bill as well.
So the meter rolls a little bit backwards for you, metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically, yeah. So the meter's running or spinning backwards.
And how much was that investment overall? I mean, just kind of a big round number for that.
$13,000.
Okay, and when do you think you'll pay that back?
At the rate we're going, if they put in, say over the next 3 years, if they increase the price of power by 30%, we'll pay it off in 2.5 years.
Oh, wow, that's real reasonable.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right, well, we'll keep tracking.
We're pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that was a good call. So good job. Yeah. You've got these big solar panels on your roof, and that's actually maybe the first solar story I've heard that maybe makes sense. Usually it's 15 years to pay it off, and you think, really? You know, by that time the solar cells are pretty much used. I mean, I want to say used up because that's not the way you say it, but I know they degrade over time.
Losing their efficiency.
Yeah. So, well, welcome, Andrew. Good to have you. Also with us tonight is my friend, just back from reconstructive knee surgery and is not medicated for this show tonight, Chris Lux. Chris, how are you doing this evening?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, it might be slightly more entertaining if I was medicated, but no, I am just on some ibuprofen now, and you won't be getting any delirious comments from me tonight.
Good. Well, and we're glad that you're. It sounds like we talked a little bit in the pre-show about how you're feeling better. It's been just a couple of weeks and already things feeling pretty good. You walking without crutches, or are you still crutching?
Yeah, just got a little cane for stability so I don't fall over and land in the street. But yeah, walking around. Went back to the gym for the first day yesterday, and got in the car and drove for the first time. So yeah, things are looking pretty good.
Do you have to get clearance from your doctor to drive? With surgery like that, do they kind of say don't drive?
As long as you're not taking narcotics, they weren't worried about it. There's also you have slightly slower reflexes, and it's my right leg. So if I were to have to jam on the brakes quickly, but at this point in physical therapy, my reflexes are pretty much back to normal. So,
nice. Well, good.
So I'm not going to do any like Formula One racing, but I can drive to the grocery store at home.
You doing any Connect physical therapy where you get?
No, I've thought about it a couple of times, but almost everything involves like lunges or running in place, and I'm not quite to that level yet. So no, I'm doing a lot of rubber band stretches and kind of weird things where I'm sitting against the wall and trying to walk down the wall backwards and stretch the leg out. And but yeah, slowly but surely I'm rehabbing and doing pretty well.
Good. You had talked way back. We'd done a Connect show almost a year ago. Have you been, before surgery, have you been staying up with the Connect? Do you use it much, or does it?
I actually was using it some. The exercise game that I started out with, I used that for a while, but then I just started going to the gym a lot more heavily. I did briefly get into a busy schedule where I couldn't physically get to the gym before it closed, and so I started substituting. I'm admitting this now, but I substituted Dance Central. And I'll tell you what, it sounds stupid, but if you stand there and dance for an hour, it wears you out. It is really tiring. So now the windows were closed, doors were locked, curtains drawn. But I have been doing a little bit of Connect dancing recently.
Nice. Are you a pretty good dancer, or does it try and correct you?
The Connect says I'm a pretty good dancer. Nice. I'm sure any observer of what I was doing would not agree.
Well, all right. Well, all that matters is the Connect badge. Do they have badges in Connect that you can earn?
They do. I think I have Supreme White Boy at this point is my badge.
Very nice. Well, Chris, it's great to have you back. We're glad that your surgery went okay and that you're on the road to recovery. And are you anxious to go back to work at all?
A little bit, yeah. I left. Yeah. I was on a really busy rotation before I finished, and so I'm going a little stir crazy. But I've got projects to work on, and just got a grant funded, so I've got some work to do there.
Nice.
And, never too long of a dull period for me.
And you're at Children's Hospital. Is that what they call it? Children's Hospital in St. Louis.
Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, great to have you on the show. This week, or actually last week, I talked a little bit about on the show. We had Vint Cerf, and of course, Vint is one of the original founders of the internet. Al Gore is not, but he is actually. And one of the things, he's also the Google Internet Evangelist. That's actually his title on his card. It's pretty cool. But he was at Gallup, and we got a chance to talk to him. One of the things he told me last week, and I don't know if you guys realize this. This is an article that was actually released a year ago, but Google has a fleet of vehicles that they drive around that are automatic. And I don't mean like automatic like stick, transmission. I mean the cars drive themselves.
Yeah.
And they drive around in San Francisco. The fleet has 140,000 miles on it. Mm-hmm. And this is like San Francisco traffic, right? So Google's down in the South Bay, but they drive around San Francisco. Of course, there's always someone in the car when they drive. But for the most part, they've driven at least 140,000 miles accident-free on normal roads with normal traffic conditions under normal conditions. Now, he did mention that they struggle a little bit in rain because they run off some radar, and of course that rain kind of messes up the radar and doesn't work well. And it's not best at night as well, so they've got some work to do. But just the fact that they can get this fleet out on the road with that kind of track record and that many miles under, I had no idea. Anybody, Chris, you were shaking your head. Did you know this was going on at Google before?
Oh, yeah. So before this was kind of public information, there were these bizarre reports of people saying that they saw these cars, that they would drive by and there was a car with a weird camera/sonar mount thing on the roof, and there would be someone sitting there with a laptop in their lap and not holding a steering wheel. And so there were all these rumors that Google was up to something, and then they admitted, we're out there on the roads. And, some people were saying, well, is that safe? Like, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to do that without a special permit. And they're like, no, we're in the driver's seat. We're controlling it. We're just allowing a computer to navigate. And, I think it's really, really cool technology. The problem with something like that is I think it really only works if you get a huge adoption rate. If you get a whole bunch of vehicles that are all doing that together, then I think your fuel efficiency and your accident number goes way down and things just get better and better and better. I think if you're kind of like a few of them out there driving on their own and everyone else still driving like maniacs manually, talking on their cell phones, it's not going to be the best thing ever. But I cannot wait for a car to just take me where I need to go, to get in and sit down and just start reading a book and let it take me to my destination. I'd love that.
Ironically, he said that they don't run off GPS, which I think most people would say, oh, you're taking advantage of the GPS features. Vince said in most cases, GPS can be up to a meter off. And so that's
I'm sure
not.
It uses some GPS though, right?
Well, yeah, sure. No, I'm sure it uses some, but that's not its primary form of.
I think it partially uses video to be able to read the road. Like it's literally looking at the lines and looking at what it expects to be there and what it actually sees. It's looking at the cars both visually and by radar. It's bouncing signals off of the road surface itself and way up ahead to see what the changing conditions are to make sure that you're not going off into the berm or into the median or things like that.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure, so GPS is probably the very top layer, right, to make sure you're in the right area.
In the right county.
Right. And it knows what to expect from a road, and it doesn't have to do massive processing around where you're at. It kind of does that. And then it probably uses the radar technologies. And I would assume something like a Kinect, right, with two cameras that has some kind of 3D capabilities associated with it that can tell shapes and sizes, and it's looking for certain things. And Chris, I imagine even infrared would be helpful at that point to pull heat off objects and be able to identify humans and dogs.
Well, and I mean, all that stuff it sounds amazing to me. And then you look at that and say, well, would it ever be commercially viable for each of us to have on our own cars? And, I could see another level in the future where rather than it being your car that sits in your garage, you say, I want to leave for work tomorrow at 5:45. And a car is sitting in front of my house at 5:45. And I get in it and it takes me to work. And I get out and it goes away and it goes to get the next person. And you've got a fleet of 1,000 of these in our area, and everyone signs up, and whatever car is closest, whatever car is most ready to pick you up will go get you. And it just, totally changes our model of how we use transportation.
Yeah. Well, here's Chris. I think, and Andrew's skeptical, but I think
I'm a petrol head though, so I like nothing better than jumping in the car and putting the foot down and doing the dice with the traffic. So
you'll be the one that my computer drives around. So
here's how I think it gets adopted, because I think this is real, and I think. Yeah. This isn't going to go away, and I think this is a technology that we're definitely going to adopt. But I think it has to come in phases. So I think what happens is, and if the government's smart about this, they incent drivers the right way to get a technology like this going. So first you create lanes, like you have carpool lanes today. Well, you would have computer lanes, right, where the computers drive the cars. And so you wouldn't be eligible to be in that lane unless the car. So there's some incentive, right, to get a car like that or to turn on that functionality. Because imagine a bunch of cars that all know each other or are all together in a distributed network, right?
I'll give you a weird little example of that today. When I drove in for my follow-up appointment at the orthopedic center, there were 20 slots, 20 parking spaces directly in front of the building. And you'd think that would say what? Reserved for orthopedic patients or reserved for handicap. It said reserved for hybrid vehicles.
Right.
And then the next section over, further away, was handicap. And then the next section over from that was for patients. And I thought, wow, that is a crazy priority to have hybrid vehicles be the most important thing.
Well, we have the building I work in is green certified, and it's a requirement to be green certified. And you get some tax breaks here in the state of Nebraska for that. Okay. So again, the state of Nebraska is putting the right kind of incentive out there to say, hey, you make the parking spots for hybrid or fuel efficient vehicles closer, so that people think, oh well, if I've got a car, I can park closer. That's not the only reason someone would buy a car, but that kind of stuff starts influencing people, right? Yep. I mean, that kind of stuff, a little bit. If I lived in the Bay Area and I had to drive with bad traffic and I knew I could get in a fast lane, cars that could follow one behind the other at the same speed and know are much more efficient, right? And that you could get places faster if the network was managed in a way that allowed that traffic flow to go faster. Yeah. Well, if they... So if they do that, you're going to get to and from work faster. Hey, an incentive to turn on your onboard computer and let it drive when you get on the interstate.
And I know you guys left, but you're talking about the whole car sharing thing. But there's Zip Cars. There's a couple of different companies that do this model where you don't pay insurance, you don't pay for gas, all you do is you pay a monthly service to be in the pool, and your phone tells you where the nearest car is. You go pick it up, you get it, and you drive it where you want to go. You have a certain allotment of miles, and when you're done, you're done. And, for certain situations, if you're not driving that much, it makes all the sense in the world to share cars.
Right.
So I think there's all kinds of interesting models that'll be coming up in the future.
I'd like it just for long trips, to be honest, where I could get, for hours at a time, I could let go of the wheel, do my texting, check my email, right? I mean,
we're doing that stuff anyway. We're just swerving around the highway, trying to kill each other.
Right.
So why not let the computers take over completely?
The advantage to this, Vince said, of course, for a while they were talking, years back, a decade ago, they were saying, well, we'll have to embed these magnetic strips in the concrete so that the cars can read where the lanes are and those kinds of things. The processing has gotten fast enough now. None of that stuff is necessary. So you don't need to, the freeways don't need to be special. The Department of Roads does not have to buy special equipment for it.
But have you guys ever seen the thing where you're driving down the highway and for some reason the yellow line has gotten peeled off the road and is laying over in a ditch somewhere?
Right.
So is the Google car going to say hey, there goes the road and dive into a ditch?
I would think it would have a tolerance, right? That it would say, it's not reading one line ahead, but it's probably reading 20 lines ahead, and then putting some kind of standard deviation in there or something.
I'm just picturing a Blues Brothers scene where there's 500 cars piling up in a ditch and it just doesn't stop.
Christian, you're of driving age and are just starting to get behind the wheel. Is that kind of does that kind of remove incentive for you to drive, or are you kind of would say no way I want to drive, or are you kind of willing to let maybe the computer take over the car for you here in the future?
I'd like both, actually, because I'd like that, all right, time to go manual. Nah, I gotta do homework later. But the interesting thing would be to see. I'm assuming because the computer would need to have some sort of uplink with GPS and stuff, there's going to have to be some kind of internet connection or local maps stored to the computer at the car. So, if they do become network connective, what kind of security implications are going to be there?
Yeah. Well, and what kind of safety overrides go in place? So if you say you're driving out in the boonies and it runs out of connectivity, so to speak, and can't get the most recent maps, it would need to pretty early say, driver, I need you to take over. Right?
I'm getting tired, man.
Or stop.
Turn on the radio, roll down the window.
The maps and the GPS we got on our truck are not downloaded. They're all off a double layer DVD disc.
Oh,
so
wow!
It still does all the GPS and stuff
school.
Off the disc, and it has everything. So,
well, anymore though, if my car was Wi-Fi enabled, and which is they all are going this direction, I pull in the garage and it starts going through it. As I pull in the garage and plug the thing in, because the car of the future is going to be electric in some way. I plug that thing in and it goes, okay, I'm plugged in. Now I'm going to check for the latest updates. I'm going to download everything that I need to stay up to date. Maybe I keep, because it knows the GPS, I keep maps of everything 500 miles or less from around me completely downloaded to the car, so that, the chances of me going more than 500 miles, as soon as I start going there, it should say, oh, he's moving out of his zone. The next time I've got somewhere to uplink, I need to load all the maps for that area within a 500-mile radius, right?
Well, don't forget, people are also carrying around smartphones in their pockets that can link up to the car. So the cars are now able to pull GPS data. They can pull internet data. They can pull map information. Maybe it won't be the entire brains, but it could be the link to the network that would at least get you the basic downloaded information.
Right.
So.
Just wait till each car has an IPv6 address, and when a cop wants to pull you over, he scans all the IP addresses in the area and says, "You're done."
Yeah.
Or you get hacked. Your car gets stolen by some guy named Christian in his bedroom. He just drives it home. Yeah.
It'd be a whole new method of hot wiring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, and I think a decade ago I would have said, nah. We're a long ways away from it. because of some of the issues we had. A decade later, I say, wow, I'm actually thinking if Google's doing it now, and if I could buy a car like that would have some limited control stuff, I would dig that. We've got a trip. Our son is down in Kansas City in college, and I hate that trip. It's the most boring 3 hours of my life. And if I could turn that over to the computer, most of it, God, that would be awesome. I mean, I'd pay an extra premium, a couple $1,000 for a car that could do that. So maybe there'll be more than that, but I think they're coming. And I think the adoption, we mentioned this, I didn't come back to it, but I think, Chris, the adoption of that is slow. So it's going to be in little bits of...
People are terrified of it. And the other problem is that all it's going to take, it could be 100 times safer than your standard car or your standard person driving a car. But the first time that it messes up, or the first time that it drives off a bridge, or drives you into a tree, everyone's going to freak out. It's just like people are more afraid of flying, even though it's way safer than driving in a car. And yet we look at those instances of planes crashing and we're terrified to get in a plane, but not to hurl around on the highway at 60 miles an hour with drunk people on their phones. It's
right.
We don't think logically, and I think we'll continue to do the same thing even with cool cars.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. John Zadler had said in chat, if the kids start driving and let the computers control, maybe the insurance rates will go down. And you know what? Maybe one of the steps is the computer helps or assists with safety, right? I mean, so maybe when it senses a safety issue, it either warns you or it automatically starts. I know Ford already has a program where you can give your kids a key, and that key comes with restriction codes built into it. So the car can't go any faster than 65 miles an hour.
Yep.
It can only play the radio so loud.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's the start of some of those controls. And yes, Christian, we do want to control you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because Subaru have got a new model coming out next year, the new Legacy and Outback, which is the American models, which are Liberty and Outback in Australia. And they're having a technology in them called EyeSight, and it uses a similar sort of technology, which is, I think they're using LIDAR sensors, which is, what's LIDAR stand for? It's light detection and ranging. And Subaru have been running that since the early 90s in development phases. And that car, even now, if it detects that you're coming up on something too fast, will brake on its own. So it's preventing that nose to tail. So I guess that's
and it's going to brake all four wheels, and it's going to brake in an anti-lock manner, so that it's not like it's locking up on you. It's going to start making that clicking sound.
Yeah, it's going to slow you down.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool. I think if we can start using some of those technologies to make us safer and let the computer control, and maybe learn from, learn from that experience, those experiences, I think we're well on our way. I did make a statement about driving 500 miles on an electric car, and of course today's technology does not allow you to drive that far. But I do. I drive a hybrid that's full-time gas and then a electric assist, and that's an okay model. I get actually some good torque out of that electric engine that's in there. I'd rather have that flipped around where it's electric full-time and then the engine only comes on to recharge the batteries. I think I could get a lot better gas mileage because my commute's only about 13 miles. So I could get home and back on a single charge, plug it back in when I get home, and then only for the long trips does that electric engine kick in.
I think the Teslas have got a range not dissimilar to that. But they're the market leader, I guess, at the moment. So
it's just going to get better. Batteries aren't great. Batteries, the one drawback is batteries themselves are not great for the environment. So while we continue to put more batteries in more and more things from an actual ecology, is that the right word, standpoint, the batteries pollute the environment.
Environmental.
The heavy metals and stuff.
Yeah, they're horrible. So if you're really green, of course, batteries aren't the way to go either. So all right. Well, cars drive themselves. It'll be interesting, and I think a good topic here at the Home Tech Podcast, and I think are coming to a showroom near you sooner than you think. And Andrew, like you said, I think there's probably already some features built into cars that are mimic some of that kind of technology. We just maybe don't even realize it or don't know it yet. So good stuff. Andrew, you talked the other day. You're on your network connection right now is DSL, right? And we always complain about it. Although right now it's smashing. So
yeah. So last week I was talking about the potential change from ADSL to cable. So during the week I've done the research, and it's going to work out to save us probably $35-40 a month to go to 200 gigabit. 200 gig on a 100 megabit cable connection. So we got the upgrade ordered, but of course then the next part of the network is going to be, we're currently running 100 megabit and wireless G inside the house, and one of those time to upgrade the lot, I think. So yeah, I think as soon as we made the decision we were going to get rid of our DSL, everything in the house decided to die. So our access points died, the modem died. The only thing that's still alive and kicking is the 13-year-old Netgear ProSafe switch. So
you're swapping out all the gear in your house, which is not necessarily a bad deal. I'm in the same boat. I need to get gigabit just about everywhere, and I really encourage most connections to be wired if they can be here in the house. It just seems to work better.
Yeah.
But
So what I'm looking to do, I'm looking to put a gigabit core in using a Netgear ProSafe full duplex switch, and then probably go for a cheaper access point with gigabit ports in it for the other end of the house, which will bring us up to gigabit and wireless in right through the house.
Nice. So that'll be some of the fastest speeds available at the retail level.
At the consumer level, yeah.
Right.
So it's a prosumer switch and a consumer level access point.
Cool. Yeah, it's one of those things. I ran Cat 5 10 years ago when I moved in here, and that was unheard of 10 years ago. Then everybody did it kind of in the middle of the decade, and then of course it's crap now. If I'm going to do anything else, if I'm going to really do gigabit in the house, I'm going to probably have to rewire. Right, Christian? I'd have to rewire for sure. Right? For Cat 5e or Cat 6?
No, Cat 5, Cat 4 will run gigabit in the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a matter of
Cat 4?
No, it's all Cat 5.
Yeah. I don't think there's many people who aren't on Cat 5 to 5e, yet on 6.
So do I need to change my plugs to make that the plugins have different? Does Cat 5e have a different wiring convention, the way the plugs work, than Cat 5? Do you know?
Still, the data is still the same, but there's a difference in the 5 and 5e. If you strip the wire, the colors are on a different switch, so they're actually wired to a female socket differently.
Okay.
And I believe that's something to do with the power design, but it doesn't affect the data.
Okay. All right. So I don't have to rewire. I just need to look at the end of my plugs and make sure they're wired correctly. Is that right?
Yeah. Just make sure they're 4-pair.
Okay.
I think the fundamental difference is if you want to run power over Ethernet, and the shielding's different.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, we're gonna gut the basement at some point and start over, because it was just, they didn't do a very good job when they first did this 10 or 15 years ago, whenever they did it before we moved in. So I think, we'll gut it, start over. I'll probably just rewire it at that time and put the most up-to-date cable that I can in, and then just have it rewired with some points and call it good. So that's probably.
Are you guys all comfortable doing your own running of wires and adding the ends, or do you feel like you need someone to put the wires in the plastic caps to make them work? Because I've never done that part of it.
I've done a couple and haven't had any problem, Chris. I've bought the ones made for average guys like us that have on the back, it's color coded with what wires are supposed to go in there, and then you just have a little punch down tool.
Okay.
Yep. You just cut the wires, separate them out, try to not get them as unwound as possible, right? Keep them as tight as possible, but put them in there, punch them down. When you punch it down, the ends have a little splicer in there that automatically get to the metal.
Okay.
And you're done. It's not really difficult. Snap that thing in the faceplate, and you're good to go.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's a pretty easy. If I think my son's in-laws now he does that for a living, and so when I need ends made on cables, I've never been really good about the plastic ends on a Ethernet. And he's got all the right tools. So when I need something like that, a special length or whatever, I just take it over there, and he's got the slides that in, crimps it down. It works great. So if I were going to do a big job, I might hire it out just because they're so much faster.
Yeah. But you guys remember, wasn't there a time when you were pushing to try to get everything in your house wireless, and it was like the coolest thing in the world to have wireless everything? And I am going the exact opposite direction these days. Anything that I can plug in, I'm plugging in and never looking back.
Yeah.
And why, Chris? I mean, what?
I think it's reliability. I think it's it's one less thing that can go wrong, where if the internet seems like it's down, you're not sure if it's the ISP, you're not sure if it's your router, you're not sure if it's the wireless settings. Once you get that piece of it out, it's just a solid connection. You don't worry about the wireless coming in and out. And I feel like for streaming video, for things like that, I get better performance over the wired Ethernet than I would over the wireless. So yeah, I'm pretty set on only using wireless for things like my cell phone and a laptop or something like that.
Christian,
I tend to be.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I tend to be. I was going to say I tend to be the same if it's a PC or a server or the TV or the Blu-ray player or something like that. Then I'll tend to wire it. But if it's not, then I'll tend to lock it down via MAC address security and WPA inside the house, so that I'm pretty much tied it down that way.
Yeah.
From a security perspective, a lot of the guys out here are going to power over Ethernet over power at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Which saves you going through the hassle of running your Cat 5, Cat 6.
Has that become reliable? I know that was kind of an iffy technology for a while.
Yeah, the guy who sits next to me at work's just moved house, and he couldn't be bothered going under the house to run Cat 5, and he's using I think Netgear or TP-Link is the brand he's using, and he's running the whole house on it, and he reckons it's dynamite. Streams
awesome.
Blu-rays across it and everything.
Wow.
So I think it's got a lot better. It's in its second or third generation now, so it had to improve.
I do feel sorry for the average user who moves into a house that's not wired, and then they don't want to run wiring or cabling, and they don't know how, and they don't want to bring somebody in, and they end up going all wireless, and then you run into the wireless problems, right, and the bursting and some of the file transfer speeds and some of the crap that you run into. But Chris, I agree with you. There seemed like a 3-year period where you wanted everything to be wireless because you thought, oh, great, no running cables. Then you realized how bad wireless was, and how poor the quality was at times, and then we all went back to wired.
And I've spent some time investing in like the little plastic conduits that I'm sticking onto the molding around the floors in my apartment, so that you don't really see any obvious wires. They're all just running around through those conduits, but. I know AJ, one of our friends from the Home Server Show, he went and added all kinds of different pipes. He was putting little running pipes down his walls, PVC piping, to be able to direct where the lines would go. And he and I talked for a while about one day whether it would make sense to have dedicated pipes going from like the basement to different sections of the house, and then leave a high-test fishing line with a hook on either end. So if you had a new line, or now there's Cat 7, Cat 8, who knows what's going to come next, you could just hook that on there, pull the fishing line at the other end, and now you have a new line. And when you're ready to replace it with something new, you tie those together and pull that through. So you've got a dedicated conduit to move throughout the walls of your house, so you're not tearing up your walls every time.
Right, yeah.
So I think it'd be a lot of work, but I think it'd be a fairly simple investment at the beginning.
Yeah. Christian, you guys run anything wired? I mean, anything wireless at your place? I mean, I assume...
Just laptops at this point. Yeah, everything else is gigabit LAN direct to our servers and switch.
Right. Yeah, we're in the same boat. So the girls at our house, the girls have laptops, and the guys have gaming machines, and that's just the way it works. And so they're all wireless. And when I guess I could plug my laptops in when I got to the desk, but in that case I don't even bother. But it's I like to plug everything if I can. So. All right, good stuff. Christian, I know you've got some stuff for Christian's Corner, so let's rattle it off.
VPN. Do
you want to talk about VPN?
Yes, I want to talk about VPN. Let's play a little trivia.
All right, go.
What does VPN stand for?
Virtual private network.
Score 1 for Chris. What is the primary purpose of using a VPN?
To access
Hide things from your
else.
parents.
All right. 1 for Andrew, 1 for Chris, 0 for Jim.
Man,
what is
it? Smoking me.
What is the level of difficulty to set up a VPN?
Very.
I would have to go with very as well, but I bet you're going to tell us it's easy.
I think it's been
False.
hard.
What is the practicality of a VPN?
Well,
depends what you're going to use it for, Christian.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in most cases it's for security.
How so?
Well, in that if you're in an environment, so let's say, for example, you're at Starbucks and you're on your laptop, and that network is not inherently secure. So you can create a VPN tunnel to another PC that is secure, and that line across coming back in creates a secure line for you.
Interesting. So, is VPN for the average guy?
Can be.
Yeah, I think it could. I don't think it's. I'm not going to get my mom to use it, but she'd have no reason to.
Yeah. All right. Just taking a little survey there. All right. So, my project for the last 2 weeks now has been trying to get a VPN solution that works. Quite simply because one of the major things I'm trying to do is get the HD home run on our network to be able to be accessed in Media Center wherever I have an internet connection. So the tuner would be accessible over a VPN network. I plug it into Media Center and you're good to go.
So you want to create a tunnel for your Media Center back to your tuner, so that you could be at my place and run Media Center, run TV through on your laptop, right? That's
so
what
you could watch and record any files.
Isn't that just what Slingbox is?
No.
Sort of, kinda.
I mean, isn't that the same thing? For the most part, right? Slingbox attaches to your home cable and then allows you from anywhere in the world that has an internet connection to go back to the Slingbox and watch the TV that's in your local area, right?
It's the same end point. I think it's a very different way of
I'm sorry, Chris. I didn't mean to say it's the same technology. What I meant to say is the end game is
you would do it for the same reason.
Right.
But
Right,
I don't think does Slingbox integrate with Media Center?
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah. No, you would watch it in a browser. So if you came to my house, you would watch your TV in a browser.
Unacceptable. 0.
Wow. All right.
Although we will get to browser watching soon. So, all right. Step 1, I'm thinking, all right, how am I going to make this happen? So I think, Server 2008 has what's called routing and remote access, which lets you create a VPN. So I get this all set up. I spend the time to forward the proper ports, to get the right IP ranges, to make sure the firewall and the gateway was set up correctly, and I connect. And there's some good things, there's some bad things. The good thing being that I was able to use the internet connection from my house. My house internet and gateway were working, and I was able to see some of the NetBIOS computers on the network. So I'm thinking, all right, why can't I see everything? None of the media devices were showing up. None of the UDP devices were showing up. So after doing some more research and headbanging, I discovered that Microsoft doesn't support anything else besides TCP-based traffic, which means the only thing you're going to get over Microsoft VPN on Server 08 is pure IP NetBIOS, TCP/IP communication. So anything that's UDP, IGX, or any type of other broadcasting packet on your subnet is never going to get sent. So the home run has 4 UDP ports and packets that it uses in order to be able to broadcast and communicate on your network. Port 5001 does the actual discovery of the device. There's a couple packets for the stream. So in short, there was no way that UDP was going to be able to get pushed over that network. So that whole idea had to be scrapped. Okay. So then step 2 is saying, all right, what can I find that will broadcast UDP? And I found the OpenVPN project, which is a free package that has both VPN server and client free, works on Windows, Linux, Mac, anything you want. And so I went ahead and I set it up on Windows. And this was a lot more difficult to set up even for a technical person in comparison to the Windows version because they're all manual configuration files. And additionally, OpenVPN requires you to create a certificate of authority and make a RSA encryption so that when you actually connect to your VPN, it validates your user instance as being a client by checking this certificate. So you actually, during setup, you have to run command scripts to create the server certificate and key and then create however many client server certificates you want. So I got that done. That took a little bit, a couple days to get, but it worked. And then I went ahead and did the initial configuration. So the initial configuration finally came up, but it was in routing mode. And routing mode is the same scenario with Microsoft. It only does TCP/IP traffic. So what you have to do is you have to switch everything into a bridge mode. And what it actually does is it bridges the virtual adapter that OpenVPN installs with your physical Ethernet adapter. So you actually end up going to your network connections in Windows. You go to your adapter properties, you highlight the two adapters, and you hit bridge connections. So I did this. And then, what do you know? DHCP stops working, my IP address is no longer resolvable, and even creating a static route, absolutely nothing happens. So then the point was, well, how did bridging break the entire network? So after putting the bridge together, pretty much everything went offline. So even after removing the bridge, I was still having some initial problems getting reconnected. And what I found out was that the bridging adapters have packets, and they're actually controlled by Windows. So when you're not forcing compatibility on them, they aren't going to work. So for whatever reason, even if you highlight two bridge adapters in Network and Sharing Center and hit bridge connections, afterwards, if the adapter doesn't want to be in a bridge, but you put it in a bridge, it's just not going to work. So you actually have to open up command prompt and run a net command that forces it into a compatibility mode. And then after that, all of a sudden, everything starts magically working on the bridge. So now the bridge was able to get an IP address, it was able to get DHCP, and the bridge meant that any traffic that the physical Ethernet adapter could pick up, the virtual one would be able to pick up when someone was connected to that tapped device. So I said, all right, I'm getting pretty close. Now, the next major hurdle with VPN is that if I'm at a coffee shop that's running 192.168.1.1, when I VPN into my network, I also have 192.168.1.1. So there's going to be a routing conflict. So this is something I still have yet to kind of resolve, because the one thing I don't want to do is move all my devices off that subnet. So right now I've been experimenting with clients being on, VPN clients being on 192.168.6, while the rest of the subnets are on .1, and still haven't had much luck with that. But the farthest I have gotten so far was from VPNing from school, which doesn't use the 192.168 subnet. I was able to see the media devices over UDP, and I was able to see the HD home run show up in my network places, which never happened under the Microsoft VPN. So I'm getting closer, but if I go to my configuration screen, I still don't see it. And that's because the static route that needs to be established, if you're going to go ahead and put your VPN clients on a different subnet, you have to get the two subnets communicating with each other. So 192.168.0 and whatever .0 in the other subnet you're in need to be communicating so that whatever traffic's happening on one subnet gets relayed over to the other. So if those static NATs aren't working correctly, then you're never going to get that broadcast traffic. And I've still been having issues establishing those traffic communications correctly.
And all of this is just to be able to watch The Bachelorette at school?
I was going to say the exact same thing, Chris.
Yeah. Well,
I was like, Christian, you trying to watch TV at school?
Yeah, no. Well, no. In some ways, it's kind of that. But really, the neat thing is being able to have all your resources right there. So
I know what you're saying. I mean, anytime you can conceive of ways that technology could work, and you're like, well, why doesn't it then? And unfortunately, you have a devious enough mind that you can figure out how to go through all these layers and put all the pieces together. And so it's going to torment you even further that there must be one little thing you don't have yet. But I do know the lure of feeling like if it can be done, it should be done. And so I wish you luck in this. I have an HD home run too, and if I could click a button and have it, feed out over the internet, that'd be pretty cool. But more power to you.
The great news is that you can, and without going through crazy VPN setups. There's someone who wrote a Perl script for Subsonic that will actually tune the home run through Subsonic, so you can watch TV in your Subsonic install. So that I haven't tried yet because I'm still working on the VPN. But even with the Microsoft VPN, it was really nice because you have all your local subnets. And the great thing is that you're using your own internet gateway, so you're not being filtered by whatever firewall or local policies are being set up on the internet connection you have. So
pretty cool.
So it's not easy. A lot of OpenVPN was really popular back in the days when people would do remote LAN parties, and they would all get on the VPN so that they didn't have to go over a public game server. And that's really how it got started and why there was a need for UDP traffic, because that was really the first thing that required UDP traffic was some of those computer multiplayer games. So it's been an interesting project. It's still not finished, and it's been going on for at least a week now. And it's always you'll fix something, and then there's another thing to fix. So
just promise us you'll always use your powers for good.
Yes.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. So,
all right, what else do you got?
After that long tail of...
Well, and let me just tell listeners, if you didn't understand, just go back, listen to it again. It makes sense.
And
just
you still won't understand.
Just listen to it slowly.
The concise version, VPN, not working as originally anticipated.
And just send it to Christian@theaverageguy.tv.
Yes. Anyone with questions about your networking, your IT life, your inability to set up a legit network, or your desire to have VPN on demand, Christian@theaverageguy.tv. Get your Angry Bird hats. I was kind of really laughing at this because all of a sudden we were doing logarithms in math today, and our teacher always has the projector on, and all of a sudden we look up and there's deals.woot.com with $15 Angry Bird hats can be yours. Cute little red angry looking bird on top of a hat. It's quite interesting. So.
I saw somebody today at work with an Angry Bird sticker on the front of his laptop. And it was one of the big birds. And then I was playing Angry Birds with a kid. He was 3 years old, and this kid was first he was killing me, right? I mean, and then on an iPhone, and then secondly, he had more fun shooting those birds backwards off the screen than he did forwards at the building. So it was it's quite an interesting game. I'll admit that's the only time I've ever played Angry Birds.
Jim, I didn't know you had so many friends in such a low age group.
Yes.
We should get you together with some people more your age.
I do babysit. Whose phone?
Yeah, that's a cool ringtone.
It's got to be Lux.
Oh,
it's the Angry Birds theme song.
Oh, see, that's I play it so little. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Shoot. All right.
So now that my foolishness is out of the way, some of the big news items. This is my deal of the week is shaming you if you haven't listened to the past deal of the weeks, because guess what happened? All the manufacturing plants for hard drives got wiped out, and this means that your $88 Seagate F4 that you could buy 2 terabyte drives for is now $230 and limited one per customer. So you have a, 8 you have a 300% increase in price, as well as a limit to one per customer on a hard drive that costed you $88 a week ago. So if you're cramped for storage, now is not the time to buy it, because it's going to be a while before that manufacturing gets back on rail, because the entire process has been derailed.
And a little perspective, a large portion of Thailand is currently underwater, and the flooding has affected a lot more than hard drive components. So, yeah. I mean, yes, it does suck that hard drive prices have gone up, but there's also a lot of human tragedy in the wake of this as well. Yeah. So, I think we've seen things like this before with memory components and CRT components and things for old school monitors, and these things come in cycles, and I don't think this will last for a very long time. Do you guys think this will push people to use data more efficiently? Do you think it will push people to try SSDs that wouldn't have otherwise, or do you think no one will even notice?
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody will notice, Chris, to be honest with you. I mean, I have the tech guys that I talk to, right, and the various shows that we do have all mentioned this, only because I think we're super sensitive to hard drive prices. But somebody mentioned the other day, I mean, there's probably enough hard drives in the channel that if you needed one right now, you could probably find a sale somewhere, because Best Buy programs out their sales 6 weeks in advance. And so that's a done deal. They're not buying those hard drives from Thailand now. They bought those things, 2 months ago, had them, or a month ago, whatever, had them shipped over. So you can probably still, in fact, this might be the case where your big box stores are actually cheaper than online. Your Staples, your Office Max, because of what they bought that's already in the channels, and they're not as sensitive, I think, to the price fluctuations. And somebody put in chat gouging. I think on the online there is some gouging going on where folks are taking advantage of the news. Don't you think, Chris? I mean, don't you think some of that? We were worried about memory during the tsunami, and then of course we're seeing some of the lowest memory prices in history right now.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And that there will be other suppliers, there will be other things to help figure this out. But I think in the meantime, it may go up a little bit. But I don't know about you guys. I have stacks of hard drives sitting around, that aren't currently in use. So I'm not too worried about it myself. There's Jim holding up his stack of hard drives.
Still
in the static crap.
Well, but you know what? We're not the average guys from that standpoint. Not everybody's got these things laying around.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess if yours blows, up on your computer, you'd like to be able to replace one and not have it cost you $300. But maybe. Well,
I think if you're even an average computer tech guy, you should probably have one or two extra hard drives laying around of some size to use for various things. So it's good just to have some extra stuff at your disposal that you can throw in a box and do something with. Christian, go ahead, Chris.
So I was going to say to you guys, if any of your system drives crapped out and you didn't have anything lying around, would you go with an SSD or would you go with a standard drive still?
Depends if it's the desktop or server.
Say that again, Christian. Let me direct traffic. Say that again.
Depends if it's desktop or server. If it were server, I'd definitely get the spinning.
For storage space?
Yeah.
What about the OS in your server?
That's a tricky one, because the way the OS is partitioned now, you'd have to shrink the partition to fit on the SSD, because it's on a 2 terabyte drive. And
I guess in most cases though, like if you have a neighbor that calls, or your grandma calls and says, "Hey, my computer died. I need a new hard drive." Do you put an SSD in there, or do you go out and find a 500 gigabyte drive to stick in there?
I don't know. I guess it depends on if they're the kind of person that's just checking email, or if they're the person storing 5,000.
I know your grandma's on BitTorrent, but
No, I think that's Andrew. Did you lock up? Are you still there? Okay, you're listening somewhere else. Okay,
I'm personally locked up.
You stood really still for a while. Yeah, I think, Chris, at least the part of the answer is I think it depends on the user, right? And my daughter has one of those small little netbooks. I bought her a little netbook, and it has a spinning drive in it. If hers went bad, I absolutely would replace that with an SSD, right? In a second. Yep. My own machines, it depends on the machine. In most cases, I'm going to probably go for economy, and I'll put a spinning drive in it because I don't require.
For now, right?
Yeah, for now, I don't require that. However, there are some applications where I might want to put an SSD in if I got an HTPC and I want great speed out of that. So, yes and no, I guess, is my answer.
Sure.
Christian, let me cut in, since you're talking about hard drives. Let me just cut in real quick. I mentioned this last night on the Home Server Show, and I'll mention it again. I did have a hard drive go bad in the Drobo the other day. We were doing some testing, and the red light came on. And I never actually, since I've had these Drobos for testing, I haven't really had a drive go bad. And these are brand new Western Digital ears drives. And when it went bad, I was a little surprised. That was Saturday. Sunday night, I pulled out the drive. I got on the website. I RMA'd it. They shipped me a new one that came yesterday with the box and a sticker for it to go back. All done within a week, and super simple and super easy. So I don't know what the hard drive companies have done, but they've gotten, at least Western Digital has gotten really good at taking care of you as a customer if the drive goes bad. I mean, no questions asked, no receipt necessary, nothing. I mean, it was just, it was, well, I shouldn't say nothing. They did take my credit card number, and because they sent me a drive first, right? They're going to hold that in reserve. Now, you know what they held for a 1.5 terabyte drive? $60. So, that gives you a pretty good indication of how low these prices have gotten, or at least the value on these hard drives. So it was a great process. And somebody asked me, did it smell like water? No, it was just a regular what we just talked about. Maybe, did they ship it from a plant that was underwater? Oh. So anyways, all right, Christian, one more thing. Your old school tip of the week.
My old school tip of the week. I don't know if this was actually a speed tip you would have gotten back in the days of XP. But if you have a lot of fonts on any OS, why don't you put some of them that you are never going to use in your entire life into a backup folder and get them off your C Windows Fonts folder, because all of those have to load up when Windows starts, and the less fonts you have, the quicker life will be. And that's your incredibly old...
Just to clarify, this is a Windows XP font system resource utilization speed tip.
Yes, but I believe it does also apply to Windows 7 and Vista loading, because all the kernels do load the fonts.
Wow, are fonts resource intensive?
They're not resource intensive, but they get parsed and listed during the kernel boot up. So it's like it doesn't matter if it's an essential font or not. It gets processed when Windows is starting up.
Gotcha. Very cool, Christian. Thanks. I know you're a busy guy with a lot on your plate, and thanks for Christian's Corner. Mm-hmm. Chris, we brought you on primarily, well, one, because you're a good friend of the show, but two, I want to hear how this Windows Phone experiment is going for you. I know you love your Windows Phone, and I called it Winders. Yes, I just got
Winders.
Yep, your Winders Phone. How is that Winders Phone?
I really like it. I read an interesting article on Engadget a couple weeks ago, that was basically talking about how you like your tech, and you probably like your favorite operating system or your favorite phone OS, but don't go trying to convince other people, because you just become annoying when you do that. So I'm not going to try and convince the world to switch to Windows Phone, but I will say that the Mango update was amazing. It was one of those things you kept hearing, like, oh, it brings it up to par with where things have been in the past. And I really thought that the initial phone that I had worked great, and I didn't have too many complaints with it. And once I installed the update, I would say for the first hour or so, I didn't notice anything being different. I didn't notice that there was anything that was dramatically changed. It seemed a little bit faster, a little snappier. But it's all under the hood. There have been all these great little things where if I go to text someone and they happen to be on Facebook, or they happen to have Messenger open, or they happen to be actively tweeting recently, it'll redirect my text message to where they were most recently. And I've saved a lot of texts where it's just like, oh, I'm actually chatting with someone on Facebook, but it doesn't make that a big point. It doesn't throw me into a Facebook app. It just says, oh, this message happened to be a Facebook message. And then when I type the next message and they happen to be gone from Facebook, it says, they're no longer online. Would you like to convert this to a text message? And then it just sends it out that way and keeps the conversation rolling. Little things like that.
Messaging that follows you around would be nice, right?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I'd love
it. Does some of the stuff in the People Hub works a little bit better, where it puts people into groups, so I can have a pinned tile of just my family, And so the nice feature of being able to see all the pictures, all the posts, all the tweets, all the stories and links from everybody, I can now say, you know what, I want to see that array of stuff just from my immediate family, or I want to see it just from my coworkers. And all of those groups can now just be pinned anywhere on my front page, and it'll show me those updates live. It's just, it really does do what they advertise, which is where you don't spend your whole time like digging through your phone. You just glance at it and you're like, oh, there's 2 new things here, there's 2 new things there, done. I didn't have to look in 5 different places to find those new things. It just aggregates them all together. So I'm a big fan. You know, it's still having trouble getting off the ground. I think the retail stores are still not actively promoting it because they aren't getting a lot of kickbacks. You know, the guys that sell those phones in the store, when someone walks in and says, what's the next best phone, they make money. They make a significant amount of money off of Android phones. Right. They make some money off the iPhone, and people know the iPhone. They don't yet off of Windows phones, and so it's really not being touted. But I think the word of mouth is starting to get out there. I've seen other people with them that I wouldn't expect to have them now, or I'm like, hey, what made you get that? And they said, oh, I don't know, it just looked really neat. And I think when Windows 8 comes out and it looks like Windows Phone, and people say, oh, cool, Windows 8's here, and look, they made phones to match it. You know, it's going the other way. The phone is what's pushing the next operating system. Yeah. But I really think when people start to go to the store and replace their computers and suddenly have this new interface that brings them all this rich information all at once on their computer, and then they're right next to it, they see the phones that do the same thing, that's when we'll see some adoption. But that's still another year or so away, I think. So love the phone, love the update. I'm still holding out hope that this thing takes off, but it's still a slow start for Windows Phone.
Which network are you on?
AT&T.
And you have the Focus?
No, I have the HD7S. It's an HTC phone. Great big monitor, or great big screen. It's, 4.2 or 4.3, I don't know exactly, but
so
yeah, far bigger than my iPhone. I had an iPhone before that, and you know, the biggest test for me, I think, was once I got the Windows Phone, was whether I would want to switch back to the iPhone. And for me, there's no way. There's just too much more in the Windows Phone that I use and that I'm used to, that I wouldn't switch.
Fairly snappy for you as far as responsiveness?
Very. So that's one of the things they've really focused on is keeping everything low intensity. So the operating system is low profile. The apps kind of pop in and out quickly. One of the nice things about that, most of the Android phones and the iPhone, everything's dual, or multi-core now. And I don't think there are any Windows phones yet that are multi-core because they simply don't need it. They're streamlined enough to live on one core and work just fine. And to me, that it's a detriment, because when you put 2 phones up and someone is just looking down the specs and they say, well, this one has dual core and that has 1 core, of course I should get the dual core. But it really comes down to which one does what you need it to. And I think the Windows Phone OS is such a pared down, simplified OS that it does that without a whole lot of muscle. So anyway, I like it.
Yeah, my wife just picked up her iPhone today. She went from a BlackBerry to an iPhone. It's been difficult to get the iPhone on Sprint. There's been an overwhelming response on Sprint, and we just had trouble getting it. So she got it today. She was leaving as I was coming in tonight, and so we literally passed in the driveway, said goodbye. She was messing. She was already starting to mess with her phone, and so I do.
Anytime you switch to a real smartphone, BlackBerries are good, but they're not necessarily smartphones. Yeah. I think anytime you have that experience, you fall in love. So either the first time you pick up an iPhone, the first time you pick up an Android, the first time you pick up a Windows Phone, it's like, oh my God, I can do all of these things in one place. And I think there is a lot of loyalty from that. I think whatever you pick up the first time, you're going to fall in love and stay there. So convincing someone to switch from iPhone to Android or Android to Windows Phone or any of those changes is never really easy. But it's the new people. It's the people that are first coming in and trying things. I hope they give all 3 a chance and look at them and pick the one that fits your needs best. If you really want, all of the Apple stuff and you live in the Apple ecosystem, it's a wonderful environment to be in. If you love Google and everything that Google is and does, go for Android. And if you pick up the Windows Phone and it meets your needs, it's a good solution.
Well, so I'm on Android. I'm on an Epic, original Epic single core. It's starting to it really does drag with the new 2.3 on it. Mm-hmm. And I talked Sprint into letting me change my phone after a year through the Premier program.
Okay.
And so starting November 8th, between November 8th and December 31st, I could pick up another phone and not just not pay the upgrade or for the full cost of the phone. So I've been considering about jumping back in the market. So I'm going to look at her phone. I know there's some new Windows phones coming, although I don't think they're going to come in time for me to make the switch. There were some Nokia announcements, and there's some other things going on with the phones. I may have to take a look at that, but I definitely am going to, I shouldn't say definitely. I am considering moving away from Android just to do something different, to be honest with you. Andrew agrees with me. He's not having a great time with his Android phone either. Mine's just been a little clunky with the latest update. I think it's overpowering the hardware in this case. I don't think it's lean and mean, maybe like the Windows Phone might be from a programming standpoint. That's one of the problems with open source, is that it can get a little fat and bulky and not, who's looking out for the code. There's not some interest in to keep it the most, efficient.
Okay. Well, I know for Sprint they have the HTC Arrive is their big Windows phone, and it gets great reviews. I mean, it's 4.5 out of 5 stars by reviewers on the Sprint site, and it's a very similar form factor to what I have. It's a slightly smaller screen, but the thing you can always consider, Jim, is try it for the 30 days. Pick it up, give it a shot. I think the thing that will surprise you the most is just by logging in to Facebook and Google, your phone will become your phone within minutes.
Yeah.
It'll just be sitting there, and you'll think, well, what do I do next? And then you start seeing, oh, wait, there's my contacts. And, oh, look, I have a new message. And, oh, look, here's some pictures that my friends just posted. And it just populates, and it's a nice experience.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I don't have any real problems with Android at this point. I mean, again, my phone, I think it's overpowering my hardware. And if I spent some more time with it, I know that, they recommended, and I know Paul Thurrott recommended that you spend some time kind of prepping your Windows Live account to receive all these things.
Yes and no. I mean, you can also specify what each of the things use. So you can say, I want my calendar to be my Google Calendar, and I want my contacts to be a mixture. And it'll end up being a mixture of your Facebook, Google, and Windows Live. So, but it puts them all together. So you don't care where it came from. You just say, hey, I want to click on Jim Collison, and it'll say, oh, do you want to call his phone, text his phone, write on his wall, send him a tweet? It's all in one place. Yeah. And I don't know where it got it from. It just got it from all of those sources.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I've got I can't do it today. I am anxious at looking at the iPhone. We haven't had one in the family yet, so it'll be an interesting look. I'll probably spend some time this week stealing her phone. She'll probably be pissed.
Yeah, she should.
Steal her phone, give it a good look, and then Mike Howard was saying in chat, of course, the Samsung Galaxy 2S is out, and of course that is just a beast. I mean, that is a nice looking phone. It'll be interesting to see where that one goes. I probably need to stop by the Sprint store and just take a peek at what's available.
Yeah,
and take a look at it. So, all right, Chris, anything else you want to cover? I know we're getting ready to wrap things up. Anything else?
Sure. Something we can talk briefly about, and maybe this is a topic for a future show, but one of the things when Christian was talking about the HT home run, I have one of those as well, and I'm a consumer of over-the-air digital television. So, and my family growing up, we never had cable. We always just used our antenna and picked up the local stations. And I think there's still a fairly good portion of the population that uses just antenna television. When I had my surgery, my mom came in to sort of help out for a couple of days, and she's someone who only uses the antenna. And she was looking at the way my media center worked as a DVR. And she knows a lot of people that have DVR. My brothers both have cable, and there's DVR through that. And she was saying, gosh, I really want that. I want the ability to record shows and watch them when I want to and skip commercials and all of those things. And as we talked about it, she said, what are the options for someone who doesn't have cable, who wants to have an over-the-air DVR? And the only commercial option I could think of was TiVo. And there, it's a good system. It works pretty well. But you're spending $20 a month for the programming guide. And to me, that's a killer, because now you're talking about spending, $240 a year to keep this thing up and running. It makes sense to me. If you don't have a money-making scheme where you're getting money out of the people who are using your system, like a DVR through the cable company, they'll spend the extra money because they know if they can get $10 a month for you for the life of your cable subscription, it'll pay for that DVR 100 times over. But I just don't think there are great options for over-the-air DVRs, and just wanted to throw that out there and see if you guys know of inexpensive or better ways to do that than I came up with.
Yeah, in Australia we've got a service called ICE TV.
ICE?
ICE TV, so like cold as ice.
Okay, yeah.
Which interfaces directly with your PVR, so
okay.
you can line up your recordings and your series recordings and stuff like that, and that has a subscription base, but it works out to something like $90 for about 20 months. And occasionally they do, so it's about $20 a month. But occasionally they do deals where you'll get, say for $100 you'll get lifetime subscription.
Right.
So I guess for the Aussies who listen to the show, that's an option. I think in the States there's one called Equinox or something similar.
Okay.
Which will integrate with various PVRs, but I think there are definitely cheaper options out there than TiVo, because TiVo, I think all around the world, scares a lot of people off with their pricing models.
Yeah. And I've, as someone who has owned a TiVo before, I could see it being a great solution for them, but they definitely balk at the idea of spending that much each month, and paying $600-700 for a lifetime subscription doesn't make sense to them either. They would never do that either. So
it'd almost be nice if you could just put them in a device that had like HT Home Run embedded in it and ran Windows with Media Center and had an HD out for the flat screen, right?
Well, and that's kind of what I was saying was, we've had Media Center, we've had this type of setup now for a few years, and really no one has been able to put those pieces together into like a Windows embedded, shrunk down version that's a fanless system that costs $150 and uses free internet electronic programming guides. Within a day of using the Windows Media Center, my mom was like, "Oh yeah, I know how to do this. I can pick the show I want to record. I can play it. I can stop. And she loved it. But the thought of having a computer running next to her television, she didn't like it, and I don't like it because she's going to call me every time it breaks down, and rightfully so.
Right.
And it's not going to break down. It's just that the video drivers won't start up one time, and you'll have to reboot it. And rebooting a television makes no sense to the average user.
Right.
So I guess I'm just wishing there was a better option out there, and hopefully we'll get a surprise that somebody out there will care about the large part of the population that does not pay for cable and would like to just use a DVR over the air, and will come up with something that fits their needs better.
We use those Western Digital, I forget the name of them now, the Western Digital boxes.
Guys.
Yeah.
And but you almost can't really get live TV from that.
No, you can't. But I mean, it would that size with a Media Center interface like Windows has.
Perfect.
And a built-in cable card. Just a built-in tuner, right? HD Home Run digital tuner. That's what I run up there. I got 2 up there, and you're right. Nobody's
and
put
a hard drive and a storage space.
3 great tastes that taste great together, right? That would be something. A stripped down kernel that basically just runs Media Center. Right. That would be instant on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you would hit it and it would bring that up. Yep. Don't worry about any virus. Don't worry about any other stuff. You're not surfing the web. Just enough to do. I don't know, maybe with WinMin and Windows 8, and maybe that'll be something you can pull out, that WinMin, put it on something, and then just put a media center on top of it. So it'd be interesting. One last thought, Chris, you said this with Windows 8, and I forgot to mention it. There has been an update to the developer's preview for Windows 8. So if you were one of those crazy guys that went out and downloaded the developer's preview a couple weeks or month or whatever it was ago, and you tried it for one night, and that was the extent of your Windows 8 experiment, which I know a lot of guys did. You loved it or you hated it, and a lot of people had a lot of crazy comments about it. So in the most recent update, I'm sure some other things got fixed, but one of the ones I noticed, or two things I noticed right off the bat, is there's now a scroll bar at the bottom of the screen, so a very visible scroll bar, because that was nobody could figure out how to get to these tiles, so that they addressed that. The other thing is it's one click to power off now. That had been buried deep in a setting somewhere to find how to power that thing off. And now if you just go to settings, there's a power off button right there for you to be able to turn that thing off. I set it up in a VM, and I happen to be updating all my Windows Home Server VMs this weekend, getting them ready for some testing. And I thought, oh, hey, Windows 8 developer preview. I wonder if there have been any updates for it. And because Microsoft hasn't said a word about that thing since they put it out.
No media center in it yet, though, right?
No. Okay. But sure enough, it had been updated, and I didn't spend enough time looking at it to really see if there were any other annoying things about it that we didn't like. I did.
Well, what I saw on the Tech Bargain site today, there was a $250 23-inch touchscreen monitor, and I thought, if I take my little net top and screw it on the back and put Windows 8 on it, now I've got a touch interface computer all in one. So I got to not spend that money, but
or even one of those little $200 net top. They're clearancing all those things out. Zotac or Lenovo makes one, or Revo, an Acer Revo.
Yep.
And they're all I shouldn't say they're all, but most of them have some kind of VESA mount that would probably go right on.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've got a computer that would do that. So
$250.
The touch, the touch interface sounds kind of exciting. So.
I still don't know, Chris. Getting that big monitor all greasy.
What are you saying? I'm greasy? I know what you mean.
I know. All right, guys. Well, we've used up our allotted time. Anything else that needs to be said before we call it quits? All right, I'll take that as a resounding.
Good.
As a resounding no. It's been a heck of a week for everybody. Chris Lux, thanks for taking the time tonight to come out.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's nice to be here.
It's good to have you, and thanks for visiting us on show 50. This is we're halfway to a century, and I want to thank the listeners for taking the time to. If you've been listening from the beginning, I'm sorry. No, just kidding. No, I thank you.
I'll apologize from show 11 onwards.
We have had some fun on this journey and do this every week here on Thursday nights at theaverageguy.tv/live. Usually around 7 p.m. Sometimes we don't get started on time, but all the ability to download the show, if you're not doing that to some kind of device, whether an iPod, iPad, or some kind of Android device to get it on a weekly basis. We have all the links that you need out there at theaverageguy.tv to be able to get that done. Andrew does a bang-up job in the show notes each week, so make sure you get an opportunity to go out and see those. Andrew, I hate for all that hard work that you do because you do such a great job on those. I would like people to go out and read them, so go out and do that. If you download this podcast via iTunes, go out and drop a link or a comment for us on iTunes. That'll move our ranking up a little bit, and that makes it nice for the show. And Andrew and Christian, thanks for taking the time tonight as well to be on. It's great having you. Remind folks that if they want to contact the show, they can send us an email, podcast@theaverageguy.tv. And like I said before, we're out here each and every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central. Find us if you have questions. Let us know. Guys, thanks for coming out tonight. We'll do it all again next Thursday. And I say that every time I have to think about it because Thanksgiving is coming up. And I'll let listeners know we are taking Thanksgiving off. So no show that week. Andrew, Christian, you guys get a paid holiday. How's that sound?
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Happy 50th, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Have a good night, guys. We'll see you next week.
Take care.
See you guys.